Welcome to the Skull King Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Justin Skullrood. With me, as always, my co-host and founder of Skull King Fantasy Football, Ryan Skullrood.
Hey, everybody. How's it going tonight?
I hope everyone is as excited as I am for this episode. We've got a lot of cool things. We've got our news. Once again, a little bit more running backs are getting banged up. That's just the story of the NFL. We're going to cover a little bit of DFS news for you, as always, for our Wednesday show, which will be coming out Thursday morning. Starts the week and our Pick 'em and Stick 'em segment, which we missed last week due to my absence. I'm really excited for that once again because I'm ahead 9-6. But getting into kind of our news, our injury news, and just some things to note. LeSean McCoy has been diagnosed with a mild to moderate hamstring strain. So I played web doctor a little bit earlier today, tried to figure out what that meant. And what I uncovered just on a website like WebMD is there's kind of like 3 grades to hamstring injuries: 1, 2, and 3. That does not equal moderate or mild. The only thing that means to me is I believe if it's mild to moderate strain, I think LeSean McCoy's out this week. So hopefully, if you are a LeSean McCoy owner, you have some space on your bench to pick up Mike Gillislee. If not, you need to clear some space because I don't think LeSean McCoy is going to be playing this week. And Mike Gillislee had a very good week last week in LeSean McCoy's brief absence with his knee injury. But he came back. Gillislee ended up with 60 yards and a touchdown. And so Mike Gillislee is a okay backup from what we saw. I just think they were just going to run all over in that game. But do you think Gillislee will even be available, Ryan, in most leagues, or do you think most people have already picked him up?
Well, here I play in some pretty competitive leagues, and so he in my 4 Yahoo leagues, he is available in 2 of them, and it looks like he is only 20% owned so far on Yahoo. So if he is available and you have the space and you need a running back, and you're pretty desperate, and LeSean McCoy, you think the LeSean McCoy, there's a chance that he's going to miss, go after him, go get him while you can. I think that he could be a solid pickup for you. He was 4% owned going into today, and he last day he has gone up 16%. So,
and I think that's happened within the last 5 hours,
most likely
when the report came out. But they are playing Miami. Miami will be home, and Miami is a much different team at home than they are on the road. But I still think that Gillislee is a start for this week.
At this point, Miami, it says here, Miami has given up the 15th fewest fantasy points. They're right in the middle of the pack.
Yeah,
out of 32 teams, they're number 15.
But
in stopping the run,
at home, they're top 10. On the road, they're bottom 10. So that's where
that's true.
Middle of the road comes in. But some news about Ben Roethlisberger. I know initial hopes was that he would be back after the Week 8 bye. Reports are now that he could miss 4 to 6 weeks following the surgery, which is very, very hurtful to Antonio Brown's stock, in my opinion. Once again, he is a top-tier receiver, the best receiver in the league. But I just don't see him putting up the production with Jarvis Landry throwing to him. I think this bumps Le'Veon Bell's status, does a little bit of a dink to Antonio Brown for the next couple of weeks. You do get the option of the bye that you miss. But, Ryan, what do you think are the ramifications of Ben Roethlisberger being out a little bit longer than originally anticipated?
I think, I had Antonio Brown last year, and it was a bit of a crapshoot on whether or not he was actually going to score. I think I lost two or 3 out of 4 weeks in one league where I had Antonio Brown. Here's the deal. Last year when Landry Jones was in, whether it was Landry Jones or Michael Vick, it was not Antonio Brown getting all the looks. It was Martavis Bryant. Well, they don't have Martavis Bryant this year. Who took over that role? Sammy Coates. So I think this I don't necessarily think that this helps Sammy Coates anymore. I think it's more of they will lean on Le'Veon Bell, which when they did that last year, he went out for the season. And what did I predict at the beginning of this year? That Le'Veon Bell will not finish the season healthy. That could be the case because of Big Ben getting hurt. If they have to lean on Le'Veon Bell, I see more than they already have. I can see him getting injured, not making it healthy through the rest of the season. Getting back to Sammy Coates, I think instead of hurting, I think it definitely hurts Brown, but it will be more of I don't think it hurts Sammy Coates as much as it does Brown. So Sammy Coates, for the most part, keeps his value. Brown will drop down just a little bit. So,
Arian Foster practiced today in full for Wednesday's practice. I know Jay Ajayi had the monstrosity of a game against Pittsburgh's defense last week. Do you think this has any, if at all, any effect on Jay Ajayi being the starter? Do you think Arian Foster is now the starter now that he's healthy, or do you think Ajayi has earned kind of a 50-50 split or possibly even more than that?
I think that Ajayi has earned more than that, and here's why. You look at his last few games. He's, starting week 2, 5 carries for 14 yards. Week 3, 7 for 28. Week 4, 6 for 33. Then last week, or 2 weeks ago, against Tennessee, 13 for 42 and a touchdown. And then last week, 25 for 204 and 2 touchdowns. He is getting more work, and yes, you could say that's because of Arian Foster being out. I think, like we talked about on the last podcast, Arian Foster, I think, is better off being the pass-catching back and leaving Jay Ajayi to be the lead kind of hammer back, getting a lot of the main carries, coming up through the tackles. I think that is more what Jay Ajayi is built for. Now he does tend to have an injury history, but I think that if Adam Gase really is serious about moving forward with this team, he has already said that he is dumping the four running back committee, and so I think he sticks with just Jay Ajayi and Arian Foster. I think he goes to kind of a 2-man split in Jay Ajayi getting most of the carries and Foster getting a lot of the catches out of the backfield.
Okay, so give me a percentage. Do you think 60-40 with the runs, or 70-30, 80-20?
I think it's in terms of the carries or just touches in general.
Carries.
In terms of carries, I think we're looking more like a 60-40, 65-35.
Okay.
Because they also depend on the pass a bit, and Arian Foster is going to should be heavily involved in the passing game.
Yes.
So in terms of carries, in terms of touches, I think it's going to be more 55-45.
Okay. Touches, yes. I think even before the injury he was not running the ball very, very well, Arian Foster, that is. Even going into last year, his runs or his yards per carry last year wasn't that good before he went down. He was doing all his impact in the receiving game. So I think it's going to be more 80-20 to me if they're smart, but it's going to be more like catching out of the backfield is where Arian Foster is going to make his damage. So I think it's a little bit more than that. But moving on, Carlos Hyde is going to be out for Week 7 against the Buccaneers. Once again, this is the possibility of 2 different running backs in the backfield taking over. Do you like Drone or Mike Davis to be the guy coming out of the backfield? Do you think either one of them is even startable? The Bucs aren't the greatest defense, but right now San Francisco doesn't really have a whole lot of options with Colin Kaepernick as their quarterback.
No, so I think it's going to be more the Mike Davis. Mike Davis is more built like Carlos Hyde. I mean, he didn't have the Grizz. I want to say he had 5 carries last week and managed only 13 yards. Jerome only had 2 carries when Hyde went out. So I think Jerome is more the pass catching back out of the backfield. Mike Davis is more the runner. So I think they split. I think Davis gets more of the carries. I think depending on how far behind they are, because their defense is not that great, especially now that Navarro Bowman is out, I think that Winston and Evans and Winston and Brate just roll all over them with a bit of, throw a little bit of Jacquizz in there. I think that group right there just kind of decimates the San Francisco defense, and so they may be forced to pass a little bit more. So maybe drone. I think it's I think it's a coin flip. If you need a running back, I think the safer play is Mike Davis.
Yeah,
but
safest play is Jacquizz Rodgers, but that's a different team.
Different team. Jacquizz Rodgers most likely is already taken. So in terms of the San Francisco running backs, your best bet is Mike Davis.
Jordan Reed participated in individual drills on Wednesday. He is, once again, last report on Monday was that he was progressing through the concussion protocol and making steps forward. This indication leads me to believe that he is going to be a go for Sunday against one of the worst pass defenses in the league in Detroit. So I think Jordan Reed is not only going to play, but he's also going to have a big game. Doug Martin was held out of practice today again and is not going to be playing against the 49ers. So Jacquizz Rodgers, we've already talked about a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more later, so we'll kind of skip through that one. Stephon Diggs returned to practice. Theo Riddick is going to be out. He was out of practice today. Indications are he will probably, if this continues, I'm leaning that he will not play. If he doesn't play, this gives Tate a bump. If Riddick does play, I give Tate kind of a coming back to earth category, or coming back to what he did earlier this season. Eddie Lacy is officially ruled out on that game as well. Eddie Royal is officially ruled out for Thursday night's game as well. Latavius Murray returned to practice. I know before the show we talked a little bit about this. I don't see this as relevant as you do, but give us your thoughts that you shared with me before the show on Latavius Murray and why you think that's a little bit more noteworthy than I do.
Well, I've heard a couple different podcasts talking about this and in doing some of my own research about Latavius Murray. And just, and having Latavius on one of my teams, I've been very invested in how he's doing. And
I dropped him.
And in that whole running back situation, so here's kind of my take on that. I tend to agree with in terms of Latavius Murray. The 2 rookie running backs they've had behind him that have kind of taken over the role while he's out have not performed like everyone expected them to. With how good the Oakland offensive line is supposed to be. Because of that, I think that once Latavius Murray gets back, they realize, okay, he really is our best running back. Let's stick with him. Because when he was playing, he was actually, he wasn't doing terrible. His yards per carry wasn't great, but his last game was against Baltimore, where he had 8 carries for 19 yards. That game, the game script wasn't exactly in their favor to begin with. And they came, if I remember it, they came back to win that game. And then he's been out the last 2. Honestly, I think Latavius Murray he's the most talented back in that backfield.
Yes.
And therefore, I think with how underwhelming the two rookies have been, I think they go back to Latavius and let him, and it may only last a couple of weeks, but I think they kind of let him take over the role again. And from there, we kind of see how it goes. I think he still goes to be in the if they still split carries semi-evenly, I still think he's the red zone back to get the touchdown looks. So
yeah, I just don't see Oakland running the ball enough for me to warrant Latavius Murray. The only reason why I would think about picking him up again is the fact that the running back position across the board in the league has been decimated.
Yeah.
And Latavius Murray still has the skill set to go off for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns if Oakland decides to run the ball. But they're not really running the ball this year. I mean, most of the time when Latavius Murray was healthy, he was getting like 8 to 10 carries, and the other 2 were splitting carries between them that equaled his. So it's one of those, if you're desperate and you need a body, go ahead and grab him, in my opinion. But I think there's other options. Holding on to someone like Booker or Henry as handcuff options might be better suited for you if you can get a hold of them other than Latavius Murray. The last one, the injuries that I want to bring up, I only want to bring this one up because it's a little bit comical. Dez Bryant apparently not only can't catch the football, but apparently wants to make it harder by cutting his fingers while making soup. This was a report that came out earlier today.
I did not hear about this one.
Yes, Dez Bryant cut his fingers cutting some carrots for some soup. I don't know what is going on with Dez Bryant. I think he's just lucky that he's on a bye week this week. That's really the only reason I wanted to bring this up, because I find it a little bit comical. The whole Dez Bryant situation has been kind of a merry-go-round of eye-rolling, in my opinion, because he's been hurt. His antics are what they are. We all know who Dez Bryant is. But it seems to me that as long as Dez Bryant's out and Tony Romo's out, the Cowboys are winning. So I guess that's all I have to say about that one. So we'll wrap up. Brian, let's get into the DFS starts of the week for you. You're kind of our DFS guy at this point. So give us a little bit of your DFS advice for this week.
Well, let's go ahead and start off with our some of our special offers that we've got going on. Start off, we'll talk a little bit about NFL Shop. NFLshop.com is the official online store of the National Football League and offers the biggest selection of officially licensed NFL apparel and merchandise online. Shoppers looking for Nike jerseys and the game day collection featuring apparel from Nike and headwear from New Era will find what they want for all 32 teams at NFLshop.com. For those of you who have not been on there, go ahead and go to skullkingfootball.com/NFL shop. We've got a couple links on there. Justin and I were looking earlier. Their salute to service apparel right now.
It
is so stinking awesome. The camo jerseys, the camo hats. I mean, these are nice looking jerseys. For those of you who,
I wish they would play in these jerseys more. I'm just playing these. These are sick.
Yeah, these are stinking awesome jerseys. And even, I mean, the hats are pretty sweet. They've got sweatshirts. You can get sweatshirts with players' names and numbers on them. Then they also, they have the pink gear for breast cancer awareness. They've got the Color Rush jerseys, hats, T-shirts, and then also you can also go on there and customize your own. Pick your team, customize your own jersey, your name, whatever number you want on there. So go ahead and go on to skullkingfootball.com/NFL shop. Click on the links from there. We have a thing on there for if you sign up through the link for email and mobile updates, you can get 10% off your first order. So
yes.
Yeah, so go ahead and hop on there, skullkingfootball.com/NFL shop, and then our other big sponsor / partner is Yahoo Daily. They're the industry leader in fair play for DFS platforms. They make it easier for the little guy like you and me to be able to compete in their daily fantasy contests. They limit the entries to a maximum of 10 per user per contest. They even have a stipulation that only 1%, you can only enter 1% of the entries. So if there's only 100 entries in a contest, you can only have one entry. So they have a whole bunch of single entry things on there. They identify veterans with a specific player's badge so that you can get in there and see who you're going up against. They really do have a great platform that the guys on Vox have really absolutely loved playing on Yahoo. They think it's a better, an easier way to earn money, to make money playing DFS, simply because of the way that they have it set up with their fair play rules to keep you from getting skunked by the professionals that are entering in hundreds of lineups in a lot of the big contests, like the $1 million moneymaker on DraftKings. So yeah, go on to again skullkingfootball.com/Yahoo Daily. That's one word, Yahoo Daily, on our website to find out more about that, so you can get involved and make a little money playing some DFS. So here we go. Let's get into our DFS. Our Yahoo kind of picks of the week. And just a little tip from what I've been reading kind of in how to set up lineups and how to go about picking your players for DFS. One of the ways that I've read to learn, I've started implementing, is going into the week, say on a Tuesday or Wednesday, after the previous week's games are gone, maybe take a day off, and on Wednesday go through and look at the list of players. You can get onto Yahoo and actually, whatever their big contest is, or if you look into a slate, figure out how much everyone costs. And then from there, looking at the cost and the players and their matchups, write down every guy that you like without looking at any other news or notes, or just use your gut instinct. Build your gut instinct list is basically what I've been calling my first impression gut instinct list. And that's what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, and I really think it's been helping out the lineups that I make. So what I've done is I've got a list of like 6 QBs. I love their matchup. I love, even despite their price point. So on a couple of them, I've got I want to say 6 tight ends, about 10 running backs, 4 defenses, and then a list of about 15 to 20 wide receivers. And if you can do that and pick the guys that you like, all the way from the top all the way down, that you love their price point, you love their matchup, you think that they'd be a good person to stack, say a wide receiver to stack with a quarterback, and go through all the way down. Even make sure to go through all the way down to the $10 guys, because on Yahoo it's a $200 budget, and so go all the way through and create your list of the guys that you like based on matchup and everything and price point. And then from there, start building up your lineups. And then you can also, as you're hearing more news, cross players off the list, add players to the list to kind of see where to go with it. So that's kind of my tip for starting on your lineups. So let's go into some of the quarterbacks I really like this week. Matt Ryan at home. He is $39, but I think if you can take the hit of $39 for Matt Ryan and $40 for Julio, that's going to be a huge stack for you this week. Going up against San Diego's defense, who does not have Jason Verrett anymore. They're playing in Atlanta in the Georgia Dome, so I think that they'll be throwing the ball around. San Diego's defense surprisingly has played a little bit better against the run, so I would back off a little bit on Freeman or Coleman. I'd probably trust Coleman a little bit more, since he's been getting the red zone looks more than Freeman has in the last few weeks. But I think that Matt Ryan may be worth the price. Kirk Cousins for Washington, he's $34 and has a really juicy matchup against what's becoming a non-existent Detroit Lions defense. Russell Wilson, I had a question in I do my weekly question and answer period for Vox DFS on their chat. Quick shout out to Vox DFS and all the subscribers there that I get to do the Q&A with. And one of the questions that was brought up is, for the main slate, the Sunday night game is Arizona versus Seattle at Arizona. And his question was, should he fade or not use, or maybe only use maybe in like 1 or 2 lineups, any of the guys from that game, simply because you have 2 very solid defenses going up against each other. Both teams have offenses that can be explosive, but do you fade them in the main slate and go with some more juicier matchups? And so what my answer was Wilson. I still think, especially if you're going to do a primetime slate, which is the Sunday night, Monday night game, there, stack Wilson, Baldwin, and Graham. I think you're set up very beautifully there. I think they have the best matchup. I don't like Palmer this week simply because we don't know how healthy he's going to be. And the Seattle defense is one of the top against the run and could give David Johnson a little bit of trouble. So I think starting, using Seattle's defense, even though they're $17, might still be a solid play for your main slate. But I tend to agree with the question that maybe for the most part to fade off of those guys for your main slate and use them in maybe more of a primetime slate in terms of the Seattle and Arizona players. A couple more quarterbacks. Dalton is only $31. That's a bit of a value. And if you can put him together, stack him with A.J. Green, who's 37, that's going to be huge because they're going up against a non-existent Cleveland defense. And I think those players are a good way to go. Getting into the running backs, I am a big fan right now of Spencer Ware. I think they're continuing to use him over Jamal Charles. Plus, he is $2 cheaper right now than Jamal Charles as they ease Charles into the offense. So Spencer Ware at $23, going up against the New Orleans defense, who is like a sieve trying to stop water when it comes to stopping the run. Just ask the Atlanta running backs. So I think that Spencer Ware it would be a great way to go. Even if he's splitting carries with Jamal Charles, I still think he'll be extremely productive at only $23. Jacquizz Rodgers is going to have that lead back role against the San Francisco defense that really hasn't been able to do much. And he's only $17, another great value. James White of New England going up against Pittsburgh, I think at only $16, he has been a huge target of Tom Brady out of the backfield. And those are my main ones. And then if LeSean McCoy is out, you want a major value pick especially for a tournament lineup, or something that, someone that could really go off. Going with Mike Gillislee for only $12 against the Miami defense. He could be a guy that could really help out your tournament lineup. Going to the tight ends, Reed, again, if he is healthy, he is an absolutely juicy matchup against the Detroit Lions defense, who cannot stop tight ends. Just ask Jack Doyle, ask Delaney Walker. The Detroit Lions cannot stop a tight end. So he is one of my top plays. He is my top play this week, especially if you can stack him with Kirk Cousins. Jimmy Graham, again, especially in prime time, I think he is a great way to go. He's been one of the main outlets for Wilson at $23. Delaney Walker was a huge pick for me last week, and he, as some people say, pooped his big boy pants and put up, I believe, a whopping 0 last week. Cleveland, everyone was expecting him to just mow all over Cleveland. This week, Delaney Walker is going up against Indianapolis. Indianapolis's defense has been non-existent as well. Walker is $20, and I think they will get more involved. I think it was more of a fluke. I think that last week was the outlier in Walker not being very heavily involved in the offense. And so I think that he's $20. I think more people are going to fade off of Walker because of that bad game last week. And so he could be a low-owned player that everyone will kind of avoid. That could be a huge contrarian pick for you to kind of help out your lineups. And then the 3 value tight ends, Hunter Henry at $17. He's become the tight end 1 in San Diego, going up against Atlanta. That's going to be a high-flying game. Cameron Brate, like we talked about, or like we were going to talk about, we talked about last week or in the last podcast, is going to be a big target for Jameis Winston, especially now with Vincent Jackson on the IR. So Brate at only $14 again against that San Francisco defense, and then Jack Doyle at only $13 now with Dwayne Allen out. That would be another good pick. Defenses, Seattle defense against Arizona. We talked about this in the last podcast again. Arizona has struggled against Seattle in Arizona. They play pretty well against Seattle, up in Seattle. I think they bring their A game up there. But for some reason, Seattle dominates the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. Whether it's Drew Stanton or Carson Palmer, it has not mattered the last 3 years. The Seahawks have dominated the the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. So I have, even though they're $17, I think that a lot of people may avoid Seattle's defense because of the price. But if you can fit them into your lineup, I think that they could be a solid defense to put in, especially if Cam Chancellor is back healthy and Frank Clark is back healthy, who is Seattle's leading sack getter. The Bengals defense, $16 against Cleveland. The Patriots, Big Ben is out. Pittsburgh is not going to be able to move the ball. Patriots defense at $16 is going to be a huge pickup for you. And then, like we talked about, just to name a couple of wide receivers. Again, we talked about Julio. Julio's going to get his, especially against a San Diego defense that doesn't have Jason Verrett anymore. Green against Cleveland. Mike Evans against San Francisco. Amari Cooper is cheaper right now than Michael Crabtree by $1. Go with Amari Cooper. Crabtree is trending down. Amari Cooper is trending up. Cooper was not going to be held down for that long. I think that he becomes the center of that passing offense. So while you can against Jacksonville, go ahead and use Amari Cooper while he's still cheaper than Michael Crabtree. Jarvis Landry at $24. He's always a target monster. Who is? Let's see, they're going up against Buffalo. Buffalo's defense has been getting better. It's amazing, even with the Rob Ryan defense, that they're actually playing better. I think it helps that they fired their offensive coordinator, so their offense has been able to put up points and keep their defense off the field. And sustain drives. So Jarvis Landry, again, target monster. Mike Wallace is a good pickup, is a good guy to look at $22, especially if Steve Smith cannot play in this game. And then just a couple of value picks. Tyler Boyd is an interesting one to look at. I read somewhere that Cleveland has had problems with the underneath receivers, which is where Boyd is playing in the slot. And so as a value pick, he could be a solid guy to pick up to put in your tournament lineups. And then Kamar Aiken, again, if Steve Smith is out, Kamar Aiken is going to get volume along with Mike Wallace. Because I heard a stat today that Flacco has thrown more passes than anyone else and has more completions than anyone else in the league this year again. So, he's not throwing for a lot of touchdowns, but the volume is there. So as long as the volume is there, Mike Wallace has the big play potential more than Kamar Aiken does, but Kamar Aiken, both of them are going to be high targeted players. So those are the main guys I have. Oh, and real quick, if you're going to play the London slate, Case Keenum at $22, it's still kind of iffy. Gurley's $24. New York Giants have stopped up the run pretty well. Kenny Britt or who's only $15 would be a great value if he can put up anything like he has the last couple of weeks. And the only real guys that I have for the New York players that are actually worth rostering at all are obviously Odell at $34 and Eli at $28. So Eli seems to be starting to put it together after having a bit of a slow start. So I think against a defense that has not been able to rush the quarterback very well lately, stacking Eli and Odell could be a good way to go. So that is all I have for the daily. Let's go ahead and move on to what we got next, Justin.
Yeah, let's get into our starts of the week. These are the guys that we feel are going to have really good weeks. Once again, these are not the obvious starters. Once again, you're going to start your Julio Joneses, you're going to start your Marvin Joneses, you're going to start the obvious starters. But these are some that may not be so obvious, maybe kind of flying under the radar, or maybe just guys who we really like their matchup. For me, starting at the wide receiver spot, it's Cameron Meredith against Green Bay. Green Bay has had problems in their secondary all year long with Stephon Diggs going off and having a huge game, Marvin Jones having a huge game. I see Cameron Meredith having a big game as well, especially considering that Brian Hoyer has had 4 straight games of 300-plus yards so far in his 4 official starts for Chicago. Cameron Meredith has been one of his favorite targets, so I believe that Cameron Meredith this is kind of a bold projection, but I think he's going to have 120 yards and a touchdown. That's my belief. Tell me who you like at wide receiver. I do have one more, but let me hear what you like there, Ryan.
I think I'm going to take yours. Mine is Ty Montgomery, and so it's not an obvious. For some it's obvious, for some it's not. I just looked at this. Ty Montgomery is still only owned in 1% of leagues. That cannot be right.
That can't be right.
Let me look at it one more time. No, okay, it's since bumped up. So after 2 days ago, it was still yesterday it was 1%. Today, after refreshing the page, it is 36%.
I was about to say every league I'm in that has more than 10 players, he got picked up.
Yeah, same here. I think the only league that he's available. Yep, the only league that he's available in is our 8-team league with the family. So. Yeah, if you look at Ty Montgomery, he was huge out of the backfield. I want to say 8 of his 10 catches were out of the backfield. With Lacey out long term, they're looking at multiple weeks. Yahoo is projecting him for Montgomery to be a very capable player for the next 4. In full point PPR, 17 to 18 points a game over the next 4 weeks. And if you look at his matchups, against Chicago at home, against Atlanta, against Indianapolis, and against Tennessee, he's got some juicy matchups. So, again, I think that Ty Montgomery is a must-start this week. Maybe not as a wide receiver, but as a flex play. You're not – especially in PPR, you're not going to get a much better flex play than that. So
nope. Ty Montgomery was like my flex special, because it really only had like one running back that I think is going to have a really good game that's kind of flying under the radar. Once again, if I think Ty Montgomery's ownership percentage would skyrocket if they bumped him to a running back, but Yahoo's not going to do that, even because he is a wide receiver.
I think what may end up happening is they may actually, depending on how much he plays in the backfield this next week, tomorrow night or tonight, depending on when you're listening.
Thursday night.
They may actually split and do dual availability and make him a wide receiver / running back, which could, This
is an interesting question because this has never come up so far this season. What would it take for Yahoo to change him to a running back? Would it have to be officially listed on the depth chart?
No. What it comes down to, a lot of the times it comes down to how much has he played that position. And so, in baseball, if someone is marked as a utility player, they can pretty much play anywhere, or they'll actually mark that, if someone's a utility player, they'll put in the positions that they play the most.
Making him available to play like third base, second,
usually like third, short, second, maybe like left field. In terms of football, it's interesting. They haven't done it yet with Terrell Pryor because Terrell Pryor has only taken like 4 or 5 snaps at quarterback the last couple weeks. If he were to play 2 full games at quarterback and still be their top wide receiver, then they would probably do quarterback / wide receiver.
Here's another question.
Have you how much use?
Have you ever seen a slash player in fantasy football?
Yes. The tight end for Green Bay a couple years ago, I can't remember the guy's name. He was a beast of a tight end. They made him a tight end / wide receiver because Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb were both injured. And so knowing that he was going to be used, they officially announced that he was going to be playing as wide receiver that week. I think they actually put him as a wide receiver. I can't remember.
That'd be a nice flex without it being a flex.
Yeah.
Moving on. I don't want to get too wrapped up in this. We don't have to go looking for who the person is. I
do.
Yeah, you can go look for it. But while I give my next receiver is Jamison Crowder because it's Detroit. Yes, Jamison Crowder has gotten less targets than Pierre Garçon and D-Jack over the last couple of weeks, but Crowder is your return specialist. In addition, I think that Detroit's defense is so bad that I think all of them are going to have a good game. But I think Crowder's ability is a little bit more just because of that return game specialist, especially if you get points for return yards. Jameson Crowder should be a starter because he did return for a touchdown 2 weeks ago. I like Jameson Crowder in this matchup because Detroit's defense has been god-awful. I mean, Case Keenum threw for 3 touchdowns last week against Detroit. That should mean that Kirk Cousins should throw at least 3 touchdowns against Detroit this week. And so I like Jameson Crowder. And so moving on to the running back position, unless
real quick, Jermichael Finley.
Jermichael, yes.
So
how do we not remember that?
I don't know, but yeah. So I had to look it up because I had to know.
Yes. Moving on to the running back position, this is the running back that we talked a little bit about earlier. I like Jacquizz Rodgers against the 49ers because the 49ers cannot stop the run right now. They got boat raced a couple of times this year in the running backs. Jacquizz Rodgers in his one game so far had 30 touches. I think that's first or second most in a game with regards to touches from the running back position, not including receptions. The only person I can think of off the top of my head that would even come close to that would have been Matt Forte earlier in the year. But
he had a 30 carry game earlier.
Yeah, he had a 30 carry game. Jacquizz Rodgers was someone that I picked up right after the Charles Sims news because I had Charles Sims starting that week, and then on Saturday the news came out. But Jacquizz Rodgers, I really like this week in, once again, another game where I think they're going to utilize the run a little bit more to take pressure off of Jameis Winston. I do like Evans in this matchup as well. But once again, with Vincent Jackson out, I see Mike Evans and Jacquizz Rodgers benefiting from that more, as well as Cameron Brate, than Humphreys. Once again, Humphreys is going to take that spot of Vincent Jackson, but I think more is distributed to Cameron Brate, and he is a bigger target to look at than Humphreys. So who are some of your running backs that you like this week, Ryan?
In terms of must starts, really the only real must start that's not it's not highly owned, not really highly owned, would be what you said in Jacquizz Rodgers. If you wanted to take a flyer on someone, or at least someone to pick up just in case, with Theo Riddick still being out, Zach Zenner is a very interesting pickup. Simply because he is going up against a Washington defense that is the 8th worst in terms of giving up points to the running backs in fantasy. This last week he had 14 carry attempts for 58 yards. So I think he could this week again if he's the lead back, because I don't think Justin Forsett's really going to take over that role yet. And I think at this point Justin Forsett's better at catching the ball out of the backfield, being that sort of kind of like an Arian Foster type guy.
This is another random question. Do you see the Justin Forsett experiment continuing, or do you see more of a Zach Zenner, more prominent role this week? Or do you think with a few more reps under his belt with the team that you'll get a little bit more out of Forsett this week?
I think that this week we may get a little bit more out of Forsett in terms of playing time, not necessarily in touches.
Okay.
I think it still will be Zach Zenner due to his familiarity. We're not so sure yet about Dwayne Washington. Let's see. Looking at this here, was limited he was limited in today's practice, so he looks more likely to play. It says here he's looking more likely to play than Theo Riddick. But it'll be if he comes back, it'll be a committee. So, Zenner is one of those guys that is only 3% owned. So he's if Washington and Theo Riddick don't play, I think Zach Zenner is a sneaky start. So,
okay, moving on to tight ends. Once again, I talked about Cameron Brate when talking about Jacquizz Rodgers. I like Cameron Brate this week because Vincent is out. He'll be of more value this week He did have a bad week against Carolina with Jacquizz Rodgers' first game. He basically disappeared off the planet, making it look like he was a horrible ad. He was just a horrible ad for that week. I think he'll be more involved in the offense this week against the 49ers. And I'm of the opinion that you start almost all of your Buccaneers this week because the 49ers are to me, it feels like they've given up on their season. They want to try something new with Colin Kaepernick, but not that they've given up on their season, but they're just not a team that's going to do well this year. They're going to end up in the bottom third of the league at the end of the year. So I like my Buccaneers starters to play this week.
Yeah, I think Hunter Henry has become a must start. He is a tight end one now. I cannot justify sitting him over anyone else that I have at tight end on any of my teams.
Well, Hunter Henry's my other one, and this is a stat that everyone should pay attention. And those who play fantasy football, who participate in fantasy football, none of us are actually playing, but those of us who participate in fantasy football and pay attention, if Hunter Henry is available in your league, shame on you, because the last 3 weeks he has had at least 60 yards and a touchdown. I see that continuing this week. He's going to get 60 yards and a touchdown versus the Colts because the Colts gave up yards to Federwitz last week, or in the game against Houston, and no one knows who Federwitz is or Federwitz. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name. Dorowitz. But I see that streak continuing. They're involving Hunter Henry even more. I know people like Antonio Gates, but Antonio Gates is really only going to be targeted in goal line situations, in my opinion, because what they're doing with Hunter Henry, Antonio Gates just can't do.
Yeah. Hunter Henry is the exception to the rule where most tight ends, take 2 or 3 years to really, I think it's really the third years where a lot of them really break out. Being a rookie this year, he is a beast, and he's playing like it. So, even go back one more week. You said, the last 3 weeks it's 60 yards and a TD. You even go the 1 week before, he still had 5 catches for 72 yards.
Yes.
So, he is a must start at 68% owned. That's jumped up. His ownership has doubled in the last day. So
yes. My quarterback start of the week or streamer of the week is Brian Hoyer, and he will continue to be until he hits above the 50% mark because he has 4 straight games with 300-plus yards. I see him doing that again against the Packers tonight, Thursday Night Football. I see him doing that again against the Packers because the Packers, once again, have been struggling against the pass defense with their backfield tattered up and banged up. I see Brian Hoyer once again going for 300 yards, at least 2 touchdowns, and that is a more than enough start value out of your quarterback position, especially for those of us who stream our quarterbacks.
Here's a good streaming option. 33% owned Alex Smith, who is at home against New Orleans. And again, like we said, the New Orleans defense is like a sieve trying to stop water. So, if you could, going back to what I was saying, if you even go back to DFS, stacking Smith with, maybe stack Smith with the Spencer Ware, because Spencer Ware does catch the ball out of the backfield. And then you've got Jeremy Maclin and Travis Kelce. Again, their defense, New Orleans defense can't stop anyone. So I think Alex Smith could be set up for a really good game. Plus, let's remember, Alex Smith, if he goes back to what he's done in the past, credit the fantasy footballers for this stat. The Alex Smith usually runs for about 400 yards a season. Because he's not known for his speed, but manages, because he's such a conservative running back. If there's nothing there, he'll go ahead, or a conservative quarterback, he'll go ahead and run for a few yards, pick up what he can. And so he is, as of this point, only run for like 19 yards on the season. And so if he actually starts running, where most leagues the scoring is 25 yards per point for passing. But if he's running the ball, that's 10 yards a point for running the ball. He's collecting that. That makes up for the points that he doesn't get due to the pass yardage that he doesn't normally throw for.
Yeah, that's what's made Marcus Mariota so valuable over the last couple of weeks. Is
Exactly.
he's 60 to 80 yards, which is 6 to 8 points, as opposed to the 2 or 3 points it would have been in the passing game.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that Alex Smith, especially if they start getting a little, not necessarily pass heavy, but if they allow him to get into spots where he can run the ball, I think that would Alex Smith is a sneaky start of the week, kind of a streaming option.
The only reason I didn't like Alex Smith is because the running game of Kansas City is so strong that Alex Smith could win the game and they could blow out New Orleans without him even throwing for a passing touchdown.
That's true.
So that's why I'm hesitant on Alex Smith in any format at any point during the year until he can have a game where he throws 3 or 4 touchdowns, because in most leagues, the touchdowns are where the value is. Yes, you get your solid base off of the yardage, which he still has yet. He threw for 300 yards in the first game against San Diego. Other than that, he's barely eclipsed the 280 mark. And so with a game against Houston where he only got 186, he's just, to me, he's not consistent enough. Yes, he's got a great matchup, but I still think that the running game is a little bit more prominent in Kansas City.
Okay, here's it. If you're going, when you're streaming quarterbacks, it's because you drafted heavy on wide receivers and running backs, correct?
Yes.
The quarterbacks, you took a quarterback late.
Or you can find value at the quarterback position.
Correct.
On waiver wires.
And I think because of the matchup, Alex Smith is a good pick for this week. Okay.
Okay, here's a question for you.
So
okay, go ahead.
So out of a streaming quarterback, what you're really looking for is about 250 yards and hopefully 2 TDs. You get that, 250 yards and 2 TDs, you're looking at in 4 points per passing touchdown. You're looking at almost 20 points, right? 16, 18 points right there. That's all you need if you've got a stud set of wide receivers and 2 solid running backs.
Okay, so here's the question. Over or under 2.5 touchdowns thrown by Alex Smith this week?
Under. I think it'll be 2. And I think one of those 2 touchdowns will be to one of the running backs. Will be a dump-off pass to one of the running backs.
And my money would be on Spencer Ware at that point.
Most likely.
But, okay, let's move on. Let's get into our Pick 'em and Stick 'em. Once again, for those of you who are new to the podcast, this is a portion of the show where we get to show you a little bit more about where our mindset is on guys who are owned in less than 50% of the leagues. We're going to propose 2 players at each starting position. That's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense. All of these guys are going to be owned in less than 50% of the leagues. In addition, they're going to be statted out as projected to have the same amount of points against each other head-to-head. And so this week we have Bradford against Philadelphia, and Tannehill versus Buffalo, Booker versus Houston, and Derrick Henry versus the Colts, Kamar Aiken versus the Jets, and Victor Cruz versus the Rams, Tammy versus San Diego, and Brate versus the 49ers is for our tight ends. And the defense is Baltimore versus the Jets and Tennessee versus the Colts. I get to go first because I'm ahead 9-6 in this. Yay me. I am going to go with Cameron Brate against the 49ers. That's my first pick. Tammy is trending down, and the tight end that's trending, well, not necessarily trending up, but against Seattle, Toloyo, I can't even pronounce his name, and I watched the game last week. But Toyololo, thank you. My speaking is not so good. But Toyololo was targeted more than Tammy. He also caught more than Tammy, got more yards than Tammy, even scored a touchdown. So I don't see Tammy as a threat as much against San Diego. Yes, they're going to be throwing the ball, but Brate is the number 2 target, and Tammy is the 3rd or 4th target this week in this game. So I like Cameron Brate against 49ers. And I'm going to stick you with Tammy.
Okay, that's fine. I think because of the matchup against San Diego, I think Toilolo was they were going a little bit more the 2 tight end in order to try to run the ball a little bit more
and give Ryan some more pass protection.
and give him a little more pass protection. And Toilolo's touchdown was honestly, it was broken coverage.
Yeah, that happened a few times.
And so I think it happened a few times in that game.
Richard Sherman's tantrum is proof of that.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm okay with Tammy. I'd prefer, honestly, I'd prefer to have Brate.
Yes,
Stuck with Tammy.
that's why I went with my first pick. I did not want you to take that one at all. So,
yeah. All right. And because we're so professional, I need you to repeat the quarterbacks. It's Bradford and who?
Bradford versus Philadelphia and Tannehill versus Buffalo.
Oh, good grief. And then the running backs.
Running backs.
I the ones that I researched and put together. Right?
Yes. Devontae Booker and Derrick Henry are our running backs.
And Henry. Okay. Gosh, and Booker has Houston's defense, doesn't he?
Yes.
And Henry gets Indianapolis. Oh, yeah. See, here's what's hard about the running backs because
they're both backups. That's why I picked this.
Yeah.
They're both backups.
Well, and in order to get the guys that are under 50% owned, you're going with backups.
You have to go with backups
in order to play the game the way that we have set it up.
Well, plus these guys are both backups. They're both projected about the same. They're both playing somewhat sketchy run defenses, and they're both really strong handcuffs.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think
I could go again if you want to delay more.
no, that's okay. I think I'm going to go with. Oof. I'm going to go Booker against Houston.
Dang you.
And we're going to take the running back one there. I'm going to go Devontae Booker against Houston. They've already said in Denver that they want to get Booker the ball more, that he has deserved the chance to get more carries. So obviously that means that they want to see him get the ball. And sorry, CJ Anderson owners, which I have 2 or 3 shares of him. Dang. And Booker is owned in every single league that I'm in already by someone else. So I think yeah, I'd go Booker. They've been, Tennessee's been running not Henry,
DeMarco Murray
into the ground. And so I think that later on Henry's a good guy to own, but for now I think I'd rather have Booker for this one. So
yeah, last game Derrick Henry only had 2 carries and a total of 4 touches for 27 yards. So I would have gone there too, but I like being able to pick Brate over getting stuck with Derrick Henry. And so I'm next, and this one is tricky for me. I'm going to go with kind of a shocker here, mostly because of the Rob Ryan effect. Yes, Buffalo struggled on the first 2 weeks, but I think they've now gotten it together much more. But with the fake out, I'm going to go with Bradford against Philadelphia. Philadelphia did not do well this last week against Washington, which was kind of a surprise to me. Yes, Philadelphia was giving up a lot of rushing yards to Washington, but I think Bradford is doing what he needs to get it done. He's not really too adventurous, I should say. They are doing a split-level committee in the backfield, but I more like the defensive matchup against Philadelphia, who's played sneakily good, rather than going up against Buffalo's defense, which has played like monsters in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Buffalo's defense has given up the second fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. You jerk.
Yeah, and the first 2 weeks they gave up a lot of points.
Yeah.
What does that say about the last couple of weeks?
All right, so I get to choose between the wide receivers or the defenses.
Good luck.
I think I am going to go with the defense, and I am going to pick Baltimore versus Geno Smith. And honestly, this was a tough one for me. But I think Baltimore going up against the Jets defense. Baltimore has been playing pretty solidly, or against the Jets offense. The Jets were just floundering against Arizona. Geno Smith looked okay, but still just wasn't. Geno Smith, he's hardly played. It's been all Fitzpatrick up to this point. So I'm going to take Baltimore. I think this could go either way, simply because, like I was telling you before the game or before the show, Tennessee is has had 2 consecutive games of 6 sacks, and they're going up against the Colts, who have given up the most sacks on the season. So they could really get to Andrew Luck and cause some troubles for Luck. So, but yeah, I'm going Baltimore over the Jets.
Okay, so that leaves me with Tennessee over the Colts. I don't mind that because the Colts are giving up more sacks than anybody else in the league. So if they can continue to get to Andrew Luck like every other team has, I am not too worried. I do want to look up one really quick thing here really fast. I'll just have to wing it. I can't pull it up fast enough. I am going to go with – I don't like either one of these receivers.
Nope. That's what made this one so much fun.
I'm going to go oh God. I'm going to cross my fingers, hope, and pray that Eli Manning has now fixed himself. And I'm going to go with Victor Cruz against the Rams. I just with Flacco not practicing or being slightly banged up and injured, and Kamar Aiken not being as utilized at all this year as much as most people have thought he would have been. I like Victor Cruz because Eli Manning is number 2 in total yards. So I think Cruz will pick up yardage. He may not necessarily score, but I like Cruz to be to outgain Kamar Aiken.
Yeah, I think really the Kamar Aiken thing all depends on whether or not Steve Smith is healthy. So if Steve Smith is not healthy, then he automatically becomes number 2 target. And Flacco's throwing more passes than anyone else in the league. So, and that's even with Terrence West playing as well as he has. So, even with them having a solid running game with Terrence West, Flacco's still throwing the crap out of the ball. So, I'm okay with Kamar Aiken. Just from the volume standpoint. Yeah,
and I think if Baltimore's smart, they will have Steve Smith sit out this week again. He sat out last week. This is going to be week 7, and they have a bye in week 8. So I think if they sit him out this week and next week, he's got plenty of time to come back and be fully healthy in week 9. So I still like Cruz a little bit more, and so. Once again, my team is Bradford against Philadelphia, Derrick Henry versus the Colts, Victor Cruz versus the Rams, Cameron Brate versus the 49ers, and the Tennessee Titans versus the Colts on defense. Your team is Ryan Tannehill versus Buffalo, Devonta Booker versus Houston, Kamar Aiken versus the Jets, Tammy versus San Diego, and Baltimore versus the Jets. I think that's a pretty square matchup.
Yeah, I think that one looks pretty good.
It looks pretty good. We'll definitely tell by Sunday. I don't think either of these are the Monday night game, but
no, the Monday night. Yes, Booker against Houston is the Monday night game.
Oh, that's right.
Houston Denver is the Monday night game. The Victor Cruz is the early Sunday morning game at 6:30 in London.
Oh, good grief!
And then we don't have the Thursday night game on here, I don't think.
No, there's no Packer or Bear on here. Hopefully, I will have wrapped up this win once again by Monday night. But once again, thank you for stopping by. This has been the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Vox DFS Firelines and VoxDFS.com. My name is Justin, your host.
And I'm Ryan Skullrood.
Have a good week 7, guys, and hopefully you win this week.
All right. Good luck, you guys. We'll talk to you later.